Welcome to our second Friends of Manchester meeting for this school year. My name's Gary Heisler, and I'm going to be introducing our speaker for this evening. Also, if you didn't get one of these yellow slips on your way in, we now have all of our speakers lined up. The only uncertainty still is in May, where we're not exactly sure which date, but we know it's not going to be the second Tuesday, which is our traditional meeting time, because our speaker, Rick Esposette, is on the Manchester School Board, and all of their meetings are second Tuesday nights every month. So we have to switch it to the first or the third, and we'll have that nailed down as we get closer to that time. I do have some information I printed out about our speaker this evening, so I'm just going to give a brief highlights, and got this information off the MU website, so it's probably mostly correct. Leon Letter is Chief Academic Officer and General Counsel at the university. He hasn't been at Manchester too long. You're probably going to...
13 months.
Over a year already. Welcome to the
Thank you.
North Manchester and the university area. Mr. Letter has more than 20 years of law work and higher education experience. He has a BS, Bachelor of Science, from Central Michigan University. He has a Master of Arts and a doctorate in law from Wayne State University. Currently, it says here you're pursuing your doctorate in education at Ferris State.
That's correct. I graduate in May.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. He has a lot of educational experience as a student, but also in administration. He was served as the department chair for Southwestern Michigan College for 5 years, and also then dean of business division at Monroe County Community College. He's an attorney at law for more than 25 years, I think. Mm-hmm. So we look forward to what he has to tell us from the Chief Academic Office and other. I'm sure you're involved in some other areas. Yes. on campus, so welcome.
Thank you. So I started at Manchester University at the end of September of 2024. I was initially Vice President of Strategic Initiatives. I was brought in to work with creating partnerships with outside groups, so everywhere from high schools to other colleges. Our Vice President of Academic Affairs left to go back to Pennsylvania at the end of June, and then I took over Academic Affairs starting July 1st of this year. So I was asked to give some highlights of what's going on at Manchester in terms of academic initiatives that have kicked in over the last year or so. As we go through this, if you have questions, I am more than happy to stop at any time and answer questions, so don't be afraid to ask. So one of the initiatives we have started is that we started reaching out to high school students. And in Indiana's new high school diploma system, high school students are getting pushed to take more college classes as high school students. And as most of these students are taking high school classes, we wanted students to get that Manchester feel. And so we have started reaching out to high schools to offer classes, select classes to high school students. And this allows students to take these classes at a significantly discounted tuition rate. They basically pay it's almost free. It's $50 or $80 a credit hour versus our normal. So it's a really great deal for high school students and their families to get some college credits at a significant discounted rate. And what we heard from students is we want to know the classes that we take actually mean something. Are they going to lead me someplace? We don't want to take random classes for the sake of taking random classes. We want them to be useful to achieve something after high school. So what we have done is basically give students roadmaps. Here's a slate of classes that will lead you someplace. Okay? And basically we went through our popular majors where most of the students are coming from and basically created these little pathways for students to start taking a couple classes every semester starting their junior year of high school. And that leads them into the path if they want to continue on Manchester upon graduation. So we have our business management is one of our largest degrees. So we created, here's some intro business classes that will allow them to lead into their business major when they get to Manchester. Our education is still very popular, so they can start off with their education degree. Exercise science, which is our largest major currently at Manchester. Health science, human services, which is our sociology and social work pathway, nursing, and psychology. And so what it does is, here's basically what their classes they would normally take their first year of college, they could take during high school. And then they can step in to Manchester and just continue on. Part of also our high school changes was also we had just signed an agreement with Fort Wayne Community Schools. It was in the news about a week or so ago. Basically, Fort Wayne Community Schools signed an agreement with 7 universities and colleges, all in the Fort Wayne area, including us. And basically, under this agreement, Fort Wayne Community Schools is realizing they have a lot of students who have a lot of potential, but never go off to college or any kind of other post-secondary, trade school or anything. And Fort Wayne Community Schools saw that, and they thought, we got to do something about it. So we started meeting a little over a year ago, just shortly after I started, and they were working with the schools to say, how do we change this? Okay? And the universities and Fort Wayne Community Schools found a way to introduce students to high school experiences starting all the way back to freshman year. Have them visit campuses. We have seen that students that could see it will believe it. And sometimes these students have never set foot on a college campus anywhere, and they don't see college as for themselves. They see college as this abstract thing that happens somewhere else. So we're introducing students to that experience. Just come to visit college campus, see what it's like, spend some time. And as they progress through, they'll start taking some college classes while they're in high school. And then basically they will then take those credits and hopefully move on to post-secondary at one of the 7 institutions. Realizing, yes?
When they're taking those classes, do they do that on campus or are they mainly by Zoom or something like that?
Some of the classes are done online, so they do it virtually. Fort Wayne Community Schools is trying to do it inside the buildings at their campus. So students don't have to worry about transportation. The classes will be held at the Fort Wayne Community Schools buildings to try to make it as convenient for them, because we realize Fort Wayne Community Schools, the significant portion of their population are very low income. And to try to remove the barriers for them, we're going to make it as easy as possible by having the classes there. Okay. try to remove some of the barriers in there. We know that sometimes just little simple things, applying for a college and paying a $50 admission fee is sometimes a barrier to students. You can't get financial aid to pay for your application fees. So what the 7 institutions have decided is basically we'll make it free for these students. Let's remove that barrier. That $50 admissions fee is not making the colleges and universities rich. It's not going to make or break us, but may make or break a student. So let's take the fees out, make it easy for those students to come in. We will, if they meet certain criteria, we'll give them automatic admission. So basically what Fort Wayne Community Schools is going to do is provide a list of their students that meet the criteria, and the 7 schools will say, congratulations, you're admitted to all 7 schools. You get to pick and choose which school you go to. Give these students as many options as we possibly can to be successful. We are also expanding our transfer alignment. As we look at data from coming out of high schools, a lot of students are afraid to take on debt. They hear the horror stories of student loan debt where everyone's going away with 6 figures of student loan debt. How do we pay that off? I don't want debt. I know my kids are concerned about student loan debt. That was always a concern of them when they're getting ready to make college decisions. They want to make sure they don't accumulate a lot of debt, so financial aid becomes a concern. So what we have done is we have changed our transfer outlook, and we have started reaching out to community colleges. We realize a lot of students go to the community college for those first 2 years to help save money. And so let's make it so we can have those students that need to go that route, to take that route, and still get the Manchester experience for the 3rd and 4th years. So what we have done is work with our community college partners. We're looking at Ivy Tech courses statewide in Indiana, and then we're looking at Southern Michigan and Western Ohio. That's where most of our students come from. And so we started working with those colleges to figure out how do we make their classes transfer into Manchester. How do we make it as easy as possible and smooth as possible to students to make that transfer? So as of right now, we have pathways for Ivy Tech, Monroe, Glen Oaks, Northwestern, and Southwest. And for Ivy Tech, there are 69 different ways for those students to go from Ivy Tech to Manchester, depending on their majors. So we have worked out to try to make it as easy as possible. Students don't lose their credits, and they can walk in as a junior and spend their last 2 years at Manchester to get their bachelor's degree. In addition to our community college partners, we are also developing partnerships with 4-year institutions. We have just signed one very recently with Indiana Tech. And under this agreement, we basically share classes. So Indiana Tech is starting a pharmacy tech program. And what they're going to do is, in their 4th year at Indiana Tech, they will start taking our pharmacy classes at Manchester. And so basically, they can transition from their bachelor's degree from Indiana Tech to our pharmacy doctoral program at a Fort Wayne campus. Okay. We have agreements with St. Francis, basically working the same thing with the pharmacy program and our graduate programs there. We are in the process of doing one with St. Louis, which is in Missouri, where they will do jointly their pharmacy program, which they have, and they'll do our pharmacogenomics here, which they do not have. And those students would be doing both degrees simultaneously from St. Louis. We signed a new agreement with Bethany Theological Seminary, where our students will start at Manchester and they will finish at Bethany. And they'll have a degree from both us and at Bethany. Okay? And then finally, we signed an agreement late last fall with Sarah Schneer. Sarah Schneer is an institute out of New York. And they are partnering enough for our graduate nutrition program. That's a program they didn't have, one they saw a need for, and so they partner with us so that the students will graduate from their institution and of our graduate degree in nutrition. So we're exploring more partnerships, but the goal is to expand our reach of Manchester to those and partner up with schools that have programs that we don't have and programs that we have that they don't have, which have opportunities for students to graduate from 2 institutions to 2 degrees and let them have experiences that Manchester would not have without these partnerships. Also, Dr. Young is in her 3rd year at Manchester, and one of the big pushes she's had is experiential learning. We want students to earn while they learn. Colleges are not cheap. Mentioned that students are concerned about student loans. This allows students to earn money while attending Manchester. And so what we did on the academic side is we freed up time slots in our academic calendar, certain parts of the day where there's no classes. So that allows students to go out and get a job or do an internship. For example, our education programs, they schedule their classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, these education students do not have any education courses. So Tuesday, Thursdays, these students can go out and become substitute teachers at area school districts. They're getting real-life teaching experience while still in college. They're helping out the local school districts by providing subs that are greatly needed. And they're basically earning a little bit of money to help pay for their higher education. This becomes great as helping them reduce that student loan debt that they're always concerned about. And it helps them entering the job market. It's amazing what you can put on a resume when you have some time during your college years to actually be in that job market. Your resume builds, you have the upper edge on the other graduates who are coming from college with absolutely no experience. So we're starting to see that positive impact on our graduates moving into the job market. Yes?
In the case of students who are doing substitute teaching,
Yeah.
they're being paid by the schools.
Yes.
Are they also getting credit at the university for that work or not?
So they will, when they get to the student teaching part,
That's what they do.
that's where they get the credit. So now, if these students can turn these jobs into internships, like for other majors, like business and accounting, if an accounting student works at an accounting firm, they can turn that to an internship where they can get paid and also get academic credit. Every major has space in their program for internships where they can get credit. This also plays a big role in talking about costs, is some recent changes in federal legislation regarding higher education. One is new caps on student loans for graduate programs and lifetime caps on student loans. So some students who need to borrow money to get to school, there's limitations on how much they can now borrow. And if we can get them to work and reduce that debt load, that allows them to have more funds available to go on to grad school if they so choose. So that this is helpful for those students who have limited means and rely on student loans to try to reduce that amount, because otherwise, if you hit your student loan cap and you don't have the funds to pay for college, you're pretty much done. Unless you can find private loans or credit cards or some other way, which is an extremely expensive way to get through college. So we are very conscious of what the student loan obligations are, and we're trying our best to make sure those students have to minimize their low debt as much as we possibly can. Also, the part of the legislative changes is there's a legislative provision that deals with income earned by your graduates upon graduation. Under the new law that will kick in next July, students that graduated from a college the median income of the graduates in that particular major has to exceed the median income of a high school graduate in that state. So we know there are certain professions that don't pay the greatest. Social work is one that always pops up. We need social workers. People beg, government agencies are begging for social workers. We have students who are interested in it, but we just know social workers don't get paid a lot. Under the new provision, if those social worker students don't get paid more than what a high school graduate would get paid, they will no longer be eligible for financial aid. So basically, that means college is completely out of pocket. That's concerning for certain majors, and we're trying our best to try to boost them up, give them these experiential learning opportunities. They can build those resumes, hopefully skip over that very entry-level job and get the next step, which increases their pay, which maintains that financial aid eligibility. So this has multiple impacts on students. We're happy that we're doing it. We think there's going to be a real benefit. We didn't start it because of the legislative changes, but it has a nice response to it too. We also have started reduced credit programs. The Higher Learning Commission, which is the regional accreditor for institutions in Indiana, plus most of the central of the country, has changed the rules on what degree requirements are. Traditionally, bachelor's degree were at least 120 credits. They have changed the requirements now and allow you to issue bachelor's degree with 90 credits or more. So they've shaved off 30 credits, which is approximately about a year. So now they're allowing you to basically graduate with a bachelor's degree in 3 years. So they announced this new rule a little less than a year ago. And we have decided that we need to be part of this movement for select programs. The Higher Learning Commission is requiring us to go through, you have to submit it program by program, one at a time, and they review it. So we have exercise sciences, which is our largest undergraduate program right now. We also have a doctorate in physical therapy and a master's degree in athletic training. So when talking to our graduate faculty and undergraduate faculty, they said we can have students complete their bachelor's degree with those 90 credits and then basically transfer into our graduate programs, and they can complete either the doctorate of physical therapy or the master's in athletic training, and we can get them out into the workforce a year faster. So we submitted those two first, and they were approved. And so now we have students starting this fall, students in those what we call pre-athletic training and pre-physical therapy, who will complete their bachelor's degree in 3 years with the goal they would transfer on and become our graduate students and obtain the master's and doctoral programs. Okay. We have also applied for a business management and accounting. In business management, what's happening with that is we've reduced some of our electives in that program. The core business management is staying the same. And then in our accounting, the rules have changed for the CPA exam. So we were able to change our accounting program to match up the new CPA requirements, and they can now complete that and work towards their CPA. Like our pre-athletic training and pre-physical therapy, that we have links to graduate programs, we also launched our MBA last year. So our Master's in Business Administration is now paired up with these two business and accounting programs, so they can go graduate in 3 years and then go on to the MBA. Our MBA is designed to be completed within 1 year. So they can leave what traditionally would have been a 4-year program. Now they can graduate in that same 4 years with 2 degrees, their bachelor's degree and their master's degree. Yes?
How has this impacted the general education requirements?
General education requirements are exactly the same.
So that the reduced credits are actually within the majors?
Yes. So usually for most of them, they're elective credits. So for Gen Ed is 32 credits. That stays the same. That's the minimum Higher Learning Commission requires. So we got 32 credits of Gen Ed, then usually about 60 credits of major, and then a lot of those extra elective credits was meant for if you want to pick up a minor or a second major. That was what that room was for. For these programs, you don't have the option for a minor or a second major and still complete it within that reduced time frame. These are geared for students who know they want to go on to that grad school program. I know I want to go become a physical therapist. Well, in order to get a physical therapist, you got to get that doctoral degree. So they'll take this pre-physical therapy knowing they're going to transfer on to that doctoral program. Same as this business management and accounting. These are geared to students who know they're going to go for that MBA. Manchester is looking to expand into our reach into the online programs. Currently, we have a few online programs. We have an online pharmacy, which is they do most of the work online. They do come during the summer for some intensive lab and clinical work here on our campus. We have our pharmacogenomics and our nutrition program are also online, the graduate programs. And we have select online courses in undergrad. We don't currently have any undergraduate program that's online. And so what we've been hearing from students, from our admissions office has been hearing from students, is students are wanting options. Even our residential campus students say, well, we're residential students, we're staying on campus, but we need to work, or we're playing athletics, and we want more options to take classes. And if our athletic schedule doesn't allow us to take a certain class, we would love to be able to take it online. And then, as part of where we're reaching out as the partnerships with the community colleges, we have a lot of students in Ivy Tech who are telling us the same thing. We went to the community colleges because we couldn't afford college. We have to work. We have family. We cannot move and become residential students. The only way we could be able to complete a bachelor's degree is if we can do it online. So we've been listening to the students. We're hearing the students, so we're going to accommodate the students. And so we are starting to reach out and start putting some of our classes and programs online. We have not launched yet. We're in the process of working through that process with the hopes that we will, by next fall, we will launch a couple of our programs online. We are going to start small because we want to make sure we do it right and do it well. The goal here is to make sure we have the secret sauce of the Manchester way and Manchester feel on our residential campus is make sure our students online get that same feeling. And to try to do that with students who are not on campus is a little tricky. So we're trying to make sure that our online classes have that same feel. We have also launched lifelong learning. We realize that learning doesn't stop when you cross the stage at graduation. So we are looking to how do we reach out for those who just want to have an interest in picking up some additional learning. So what we have done is launch some non-credit learning opportunities, basically special interest courses, some professional development courses. We realize there's occupations out there that have continuing educational requirements, that once they get licensed every so many years, they have to take so much course hours to keep their licenses. So we have started some programs to help satisfy those needs. So we have classes, signed up one student on the basics of how to use AI, ChatGPT. So there's a class on how to use AI. And I signed one up today that's what their interest is. AI wasn't a thing when they were in college and they would like to know about it. Great, we can offer you that. And then there's some certificate programs. These certificate programs are mostly licensing for our IT world. So some students who are looking for IT certification, they can take some of these classes and get their certification. Okay? So right now, these classes are mostly online through a consortium that we belong to. We are in the process of developing more on campus. We have a great arts program. There's no reason why we can't open up our art program to people who just have an interest in art. They don't want an art degree. They may not want to sit in class for 16 weeks to take an art class, but they would like to come in maybe one night a week for a couple weeks and learn some basic painting skills or drawing skills or take a little bit of art history. Same as the music. So right now we're looking at how do we take those programs and offer them little lifelong learning opportunities for people who might just have an interest to say, hey, I don't want to go back to college, but I would love to pick up a small class. So we will hopefully be launching those in the near future as we learn how to get those built out. So that's basically what's been happening over the last year or so at Manchester in terms of academics. If there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Yes?
Are your online courses sort of like a Zoom, or are they like individualized courses that students pace themselves?
So some of the classes are what we call asynchronous, where it's basically it's built to students run. There's limited interaction with the faculty member. There's no like preset meeting times. Then we do have some that will be designed as Zoom, where they have scheduled meeting times during the week. That is going to be getting kind of decided by the faculty member and the content of the course. Some courses, they need it. Sometimes faculty says we can have a more hands-off approach to it. We're letting faculty make those decisions. They know the content best. They know how to present it. So we're letting them kind of guide us where that should go.
I'm interested whether you have arrangements for CEUs, continuing education units, with some of the professions that require a certain number of CEUs each year, such as licensed social workers, licensed counselors, physicians
Yep.
who require those. Are you able, do you have that kind of contracts or arrangements with those professions?
Some professions we do. Like I know in this consortium, real estate agents are covered. We have specific CEUs for those agents. The healthcare ones, not so much. There is some in there that will count, but not as much as we would like. There's some there for the accountants, the CPAs in there. There's a few courses there that would count. Not as much as we like, but there is some. We're trying to expand out as some of them are. Some of the consortium doesn't have them yet, and they're waiting for someone to build it. So for some of that, we're trying to be that person who's going to build it out and then offer it to the consortium. So we are, it's more to come.
If I'm correct, there are numbers of businesses that for the jobs in their business, they kind of just train for that. And so it's like two different tracks. One is an educational one that's more general, and one that is more specific for specific jobs.
Yes. We are seeing more and more businesses like Google and Amazon who are basically creating their own colleges internally to basically say, you don't need to go off and get a degree. We will provide you the education that we see that you need. Just come to us and we'll do it. That is a growing segment. I don't think there's enough students out there for everyone to educate. And I would love every student to come to Manchester. It'd be great. But we realize, one is we can't physically teach everyone out there. So it is. I think there's a role for everyone in this. I see it in the trades. You see the unions that have their own little schools that basically teach and train electricians, carpenters, you name it, plumbers. There's a role for that. There's a role for those corporate entities to train. Companies have been training employees for decades. They might not have been given as comprehensive education as some of them are doing now, but every institution has trained them. We have worked with companies to help provide their training. I think there's a role for everybody. I think there's not one path for every student. My goal, I'll take my son, for example. My oldest son was getting ready to go to college. He was going to go into finance. His senior year of high school, he took an accounting class to get a head start. About 3/4 of the way through the class, he says, I can't do this. This bores me to death. I can't see myself sitting in a cubicle all day. And I said, great. Good thing you found out in high school. Well, what does excite you? And he says, I don't know. I want to do something with my hands. So after he graduated high school, I said, okay, you got to find out what makes you excited, what gives you passion. So he spent some time, a couple weeks shadowing different trades, and he decided, he got to working with an electrician and decided this is where it is. This is what excites me. This is what, and he went to the trade route. We need the trades as much as we need accountants in finance. So I always tell students, find what makes you happy, what's passion. You have a long career from high school to retirement. If you don't do something that makes you happy, it's going to be a miserable life. Okay? Do what makes you happy. Why? Do something that might, when you wake up in the morning, you're excited to do it. Maybe not every day, because there's always days that you're like, oh, do I really have to do this today? But you should. Most days you should be excited to do what you're doing. If it doesn't excite you, find something that does. So yeah, I'm always advocating for students to find whatever path leads you to wherever you need to go. If it's at Manchester, great. If it's somewhere else, we'll help you there too.
I'm really interested in some of the dynamics of this consortium approach.
Yes.
Because on the one hand, I think, oh, you're sharing resources, and this is great. On the other hand, you're still competing with these other members of the consortium for students.
Yes.
And in this higher education environment, that's pretty critical. So, I mean, I'm just interested in any insights you have about that process.
So I'll take the Fort Wayne one first. That was a major concern when we first meeting. We had all those universities and colleges in one room with Fort Wayne Community Schools and say, hey, this is what we want to do. Most of us looking around the room like going, well, we compete with everyone here for students. And part of it is going through a discussion, realizing that we started looking at what the enrollment statistics were for Fort Wayne Community School graduates. And we're realizing there's a lot more students out there that potentially could go to college that none of us are getting. So why don't we try to work together as much as we possibly can to try to give these opportunities for students. Now, are we still competing with them? Sure we are. I'm sure we're going to be in the Fort Wayne Community Schools just as often as the other schools to try to persuade those students to head our way. But there's enough. Fort Wayne Community Schools is the largest school district in Indiana. Okay? There's a lot of students there. Okay? There isn't going to be enough for all of us. Okay? A lot of the schools have their niche programs. Like in Indiana Tech, we know, okay, we're not competing with Indiana Tech for engineering. They have engineering, they have a lock in engineering. Those Fort Wayne Community School students who love engineering, great, go to Indiana Tech. We don't have engineering. We probably likely will not have engineering in the near future. We don't compete. So we know there's schools out there that have niche programs. And we know that some programs will gravitate to where they become the lead institution for those areas. But looking at the numbers, there's plenty of students there for everyone. And at the end of the day, when we look at higher education, we need to do what's best for the students. Of course, we like to be around because students mean tuition dollars. Tuition dollars means we keep our lights on. But at the end of the day, when you're trying to make decisions, when you sit in the room, you really do have to sit back and think, what's best for the students? And sometimes you have to set aside that competitive edge just to make sure that we do what's right.
I had a question about, you're working on online degrees.
Yes.
And I took it that you were talking about totally online.
Yes, we are looking at for some of them to be totally online. That is going to be, that's why we're taking it slow and launching program by program. We want to make sure that, because you can have a cookie cutter online program, and there are some universities out there that do it. They basically throw students into a course, they check the boxes, they get their diploma and move out. That's not Manchester University. We have a certain feel. We want students to graduate with certain skills. They have an impact in the world. We don't want cookie cutter. So the online program is we're trying to be very deliberate and to try to make sure that students on the online get something, as much of the on-campus feel as we can. So that is it's a trick on how to do that.
Well, would that include then the gen ed classes? You'd have to offer an online section for all of the gen ed.
Yes, we're building out Gen Ed as part of that mix, and we're trying to figure out, it's going to take years for us to get it all done. We are trying to be very careful how we do it, because again, we just don't want just to throw classes out there. We want to make sure they have the Manchester feel in every class. So we know it's going to take time, we know it's going to take effort, and we want to do it right. Because we could just throw everything online now. Because going back to COVID days, I remember when I wasn't here at Manchester when COVID hit, but I remember we got notified on Friday that everything is going to be online on Monday. Okay? So we know how it felt like to throw everything online real quick. But looking back, we did what we had to in order to get students to complete. But those weren't high quality courses. They just weren't. We were just basically trying to tread water. Students are struggling, faculty are struggling, everyone was struggling. But today, I would not want to have students in that kind of environment. That's not quality. It was basically, hey, this is the best we got. And we're all trying to figure it out. As we're trying to fly the plane, we're building it. So now that we have time to do it right, we're not getting notified on Friday that we have to flip the switch by Monday. We want to make sure we do it right.
It seems like there's a number of things in the political world that's not always real friendly to all educational things. Do you have some light on the dynamics of that?
Yeah, it's been tough for education in general, higher education specifically, over the last few years. We run into a couple barriers. Some of the barriers is watch the news is people are doubting the value of higher education now. Just generally, they don't think higher education is worth it. I don't see where that, I understand why people are saying it, because I graduated student loan debt, paid it off over years. You see those news stories where people are graduating with six figures. I can't imagine graduating with $100,000 of student loan debt and trying to pay that off. So you hear those stories of people struggling, and they're like going, why would I go to college and not make a lot of money, have a lot of debt? What's the reason? So we have to fight that mentality where higher education isn't worth the dollars. That's why we're trying to find ways to try to reduce that cost, to try to offset that storyline. We're seeing some political pushback on higher education. Again, some of that along the same line is colleges are just too expensive. Colleges are not using their resources wisely. We have seen it's hit the public institutions a lot more than the private institutions. Private institutions are dependent on tuition dollars. We learn how to save every penny we possibly can to make it as efficient as we can. Some public institutions have been hit. In Indiana, in the budget bill that was passed this year, the public institutions had minimum graduation rates they have to achieve in a program in order to continue to offer the program. And as a result of that legislation, the public institutions in Indiana cut over 400 programs. Either completely eliminated them or going to phase them out. That's a huge impact. So students who want to major, a particular major, may not be able to get it at a public institution anymore. So we watched that and we saw it happen. We realized that, okay, this is a time for us to step up to the plate. So for those students that wanted those majors, we have to make sure that we can provide those for the students. We have to provide an avenue. If the publics can't do it, the privates have to step up to the plate and do it for them. So some of those programs, we are trying as much as possible, making sure our programs stay viable and work through it. We talked about the student loan caps coming in. I have a mixed feelings on that one. I realize some students don't, their families don't have much. They can't afford to send their kids to colleges. My parents, we had 8 kids. They weren't going to pay for 8 kids' colleges. They told us up front, we help what you can, but we can't do it all. So yeah, I had to borrow money. I don't ever want to see a student graduate from a bachelor's degree of $100,000 debt plus. That's a lot of money. So part of me is like going, okay, I understand the caps. I know some people have to borrow money, but that's why we have to start getting creative with students to try to minimize that debt. Give them the opportunity to work, to build that resume, and reduce the debt load. That's how we help students. We reduce the costs, change the storyline. We are waiting to see what happens at the federal level with the Department of Education. The Department of Education is supposed to be phased out. We don't know exactly all the details for that yet, what that would mean for higher education. We're watching that. Same goes with the accreditors. How does that affect the accreditors, which then affects us? We're really paying attention to it because the Higher Learning Commission, our accreditors coming for their visit in 2027. So we have to, as part of that visit, we have to basically prove that we meet all the compliance requirements for accreditation. And we don't know what those standards are because HLC doesn't know what the Department of Education is doing. So for some of us, we don't know yet what the full impact's going to be. But we have survived before, we'll survive later too. Changes happen. We have to learn to adapt and continue.
Maybe one more question?
I think Manchester's also had to phase out some programs. I'm interested in what those are. I was a German major, and I'm not sure that a student can major in a foreign language today. I'm just interested in how decisions have had to be made and what programs have been phased out.
So the Spanish majors is no longer there. We do have a Spanish minor. We are watching programs and watching what students are registering for. I remember when the decision to cut Spanish, the Spanish major was made before I took over academics. But I was there when that conversation occurred. We only had 2 Spanish majors. That's not enough tuition dollars to pay for all those classes. I think Spanish is a great skill to have. All my kids have taken a foreign language. I think that's, but one problem is we can't force students to do it. And that's part of the issues we have. We have to learn how to balance student demand with economic resources that the university has. We are doing everything we possibly can not to cut programs. We are trying to get creative. Part of it's also online. We figure if we do some online, that will help save some majors. They will attract more students who physically can't come to campus. but can participate in the classes. So if we can do a hybrid format where some students are sitting in a class, some of them are Zooming in, we can make those programs viable. So the last thing we want to do is cut programs. We are trying to do everything we possibly can to find alternatives before doing that. But some realities do eventually kick in, and there's some programs that we just can't save. I've been at an institution, my prior institution before Manchester, we had a culinary program that ran a restaurant on campus. Okay? Great little restaurant, very popular with the public, with university staff and employees, but there's only 4 students. And the culinary instructor basically says, we can't operate a restaurant with 4 students. It's getting to the point where we're basically burning these students out by trying to get them through a program. And it was decided that basically we couldn't do it anymore. It was heartbreaking. I know the college president there really, really didn't like it because he ate lunch there every day. He brought donors there. He would basically, when we would interview candidates, he would have lunch there. It was a hard decision, but the fact is well, we couldn't attract enough students to do it, and the students that we had, we're just overworking them. It takes a lot to run a restaurant, and try to impose that on 4 students wasn't fair to the students. So we had to wind it down. There's some programs that basically the market basically pushes out. There are programs that get phased out because there's just no employment anymore. I remember, because some schools used to have home ec programs, home economics programs. I don't know how many schools will still have a home ec program anymore. Yeah, it's one of those programs that basically has run its course. There's not much demand in the market for it. Students are not signing up for it. Would some of those skills be awesome for students to have? Sure, but one problem is when you have to try to balance a budget, if students don't come, we can't do it. So, but we are doing our best to try to make sure that's the last resort, is to cut programs.
Well, I think our time has come to an end, so let's thank Dr. Letter for his presentation. Boy, he's a busy fellow. All those things that he listed, goals and all of those extra, what would you call them, initiatives to get all that done. So let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. Before I dismiss the crowd, our next program is on December 9th. Dr. Tim Reed is going to bring the jazz ensemble. So that should be a fun program, just to come and listen to the jazz. I don't know whether we're going to have a dance floor, but maybe not. But hopefully he'll come back December the 9th. Thank you for coming.